Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, good morning. The snow is flying in Hutchinson and dry.
It is here now, too.
As it, yeah.
A couple inches.
All right. Consideration of agenda items. Any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I have one. We're
Yes.
going to remove item number 6. There was a change in the contract that was posted on the website, so we're going to remove that and put it on the next County Board agenda on the 19th of February.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, with the correction, I move to approve the agenda.
Motion by Commissioner Kruger. Is there a second? Second. Second by Commissioner Wright. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Polmeyer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Szymanski. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. No warrants or payment of the bills this week, Cindy?
No,
All
no,
right, very
Mr.
good.
Chair.
Just want to make sure I didn't miss it. That moves us on to Public Works. Mr. Runkhorst. Good morning.
Good morning. A few pickups in our budget we'd like to purchase today. Item A, consider approval of a purchase of a 2019 Ford F-150. This will be a 4x4 Super Cab from Midway Ford from Roseville. They have the state contract this year, and the price is $26,796.92 plus tax and license.
Any questions for John?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Wright, second by Commissioner Polmeyer to approve item A under Public Works. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And item B would be a 2019 F-150 Super Cab 4x4 from Midway Ford for $26,681.92. The difference between the two is a trailer package, I think. Trailer tow package, one we didn't need, one we wanted, so that's the difference.
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Szymanski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Kruger. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And item C would be a 2019, this would be a crew cab from Midway Ford out of Roseville for state contract price, $31,702.92.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Polmeyer, second by Commissioner Szymanski. Any discussion? Why is this one more?
Pardon me?
Why is this
This
one
is a
5
crew
grand?
cab. This would be the full 4 doors. Versus
got it.
like a cab and a half.
Oh, got it.
With V8 engine also included.
Pardon me?
It's a V8 engine on that one
Yes,
also.
I believe so, yep.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Doug.
all I want to do is note for anybody that's watching this is we have considered or talked about these at the workshop and different times on the need, and I just wanted to make sure we've looked at moving around with SWCD or with parks, so we're going
Yeah.
to utilize the best we can.
Yeah, the plan is to move these to the fleet, considering one of the older trucks will go to the fairgrounds, where we've been talking with Ryan for one of the trucks to move down to Soil and Water, and then down the road, look at some stuff if it has to go to auction, and even down the road, looking more at rotating our trucks a little sooner, I think, to get better value. I think more trade value when we sell them. We can get them on state contract price for a significantly good deal, so no sense running them into the ground. I think if we can sell them and get better money on the auction or use down the road.
All right,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
John, I'm glad you mentioned that. I think these trucks that you're taking out of service or regular service are 15 years old or older, I believe.
Yeah, the ones moving down the road are 2000, 2004. They're pushing 150,000 plus miles, but those miles, although they seem low, those trucks idle a good chunk of the day too, so it can be deceiving.
And I obviously missed the crew cab part of it, so I apologize, but this is aiding you in getting bigger crews to a job site, right, without running 3-4 trucks down there sometimes, right?
Correct,
By
yeah.
The passenger capacity?
Correct.
Right. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor for item C. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
One more item. John, these don't take any additional setup or anything to put them to use. You'll just put your decals on them and,
Put decals on, we'll put the light package on ourselves. That's primarily it. I think they come pre-wired for the outlet for the strobe lights and stuff otherwise, but yeah, minimal setup.
okay, very good, thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item D.
Item D, we'd like to consider acceptance of a $20,000 Minnesota Local Road Research Board Opera grant. This one, it would be for the evaluation of County Road 54, our chip seal project that we did last year. We've received these opera grants in the past for various things, and they come from the University of Minnesota's Local Technology Assistance Program, and they come with, the $20,000 is the maximum we can apply for, so we've received the full amount. They're used for different research on different things, and then for technology transfer of what they learn to get out the word to other cities and counties. Program has been in place for a long time, and like I said, we've utilized it a few times for various things in the past. Looking at plow cameras, looking at some wiper blade setups and different things, but it's for a whole host of stuff, so.
So
this would
tell me what you hope this will tell you about this project.
So 54, as you know, we did cement stabilization and seal coat we've done. We want to do evaluation of that, some more in-depth research on it with some more falling weight deflectometer testing, some other forensic testing that the engineering firm we're looking at would do for that, and then to identify, you know, that process and put that process into a kind of a cookbook package going forward for other cities and counties. That's the intent of it all.
So, in theory, it would hopefully tell us the good and the bad, right?
Correct. Yeah, as we know, I mean, there's no secret, I think we've had some issues with the seal coat on this current job. We believe it's from certain things, the contractor thinks it's from certain things. We can bring in a third-party engineering firm to run different tests on it to hopefully identify and help point the finger to where the deficiencies were and learn from that and down the road.
And we don't anticipate the cost going over the grant amount?
No, no.
Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Wright, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Polmeyer. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item E, so the, excuse me, the grant comes electronic, everything's back and forth, electronic signature and so forth, so I thought the cleanest way would be just to allow me to sign the grant and so forth. So item E would authorize the Public Works Director to sign the grant for that opera project, which is 2019-02 on behalf of the county.
Mike, any problems with that?
That's fine.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Wright, second by Commissioner Szymanski. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right,
Thank you. All right. We have a presentation from Public Health this morning. Good morning.
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 I'm Lori from Public Health. I'd like to introduce Brett Nelson. He's the Meeker McLeod Sibley CHS health educator.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, Brent, just so you know, you got to pull those mics pretty close and
Perfect.
they're pretty
Speak
direct. So, all right?
Perfect. Yep,
All right.
sounds good. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right, like you said, my name's Brett Nelson. I'm a health educator for Meeker McLeod Sibley Community Health Services. I work on 3 different health strategies. I work with tobacco, active living, and schools. But today I'll be talking about tobacco and then the rise in electronic cigarette use and how that's become an epidemic with youth. But first of all, I'll talk about a little bit of tobacco statistics. So tobacco is still the #1 preventable cause of disease and death in Minnesota. Over 6,000 Minnesotans die every year due to smoking. Smoking causes over $2.5 billion in medical costs annually in Minnesota. Over 100,000 Minnesota youth are projected to die from smoking. And then about 13.8% of the state's population still smoke, which is actually at a historic low, which is good, but there's still more work to do. And then tobacco kills more Minnesotans than alcohol, homicides, car accidents, AIDS, illegal drugs, and suicide combined. So it's definitely still an issue. With the adult smoking rate being at a historic low, youth tobacco use has increased for the first time in 17 years, and that can be thanks to e-cigarette use.
Could you, I know we have people that watch these at home, so if you could do a little better on the mic, I'd appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely.
There you go.
Perfect. So the Minnesota Department of Health has declared the dramatic increase in teen vaping as an epidemic. Before I get into vaping, there's a few more stats just for McLeod County. So in McLeod County, about 4,300 adults smoke cigarettes. 1 in 7 deaths are tobacco related. There's a $753 tax burden per household per year. And then there's $25.7 million in excess medical costs per year due to smoking. So now we'll get into vaping. So just a stat to kind of start you off with for McLeod County. 21% of McLeod County 11th graders used e-cigarettes in the past 30 days. And that stat was found taken in 2016. And it's thought to be even a 50% to 70% increase from that as well. So that brings you up into 30%. So it's definitely on the rise. 1 in 5 high schoolers use e-cigarettes, which is a 50% increase since 2014. But that's 2014 to 2016. So it's expected that's even higher. There are all sorts of different types of electronic cigarettes. Some look like traditional cigarettes. Some look like pens, some look like USB drives, some look like other types of electronic devices like MP3 players. I actually brought a few examples with that I'll pass out as well. But what is the cause of the rapid growth among youth with these e-cigarettes? Well, it's the flavors. The flavors that they have, like mango, mint, cucumber, sour gummy worms, strawberry kiwi, cotton candy, grape, vanilla cupcake, maple pancakes, and the list goes on. There's hundreds and hundreds of flavors that appeal to youth. Even on the vanilla cupcake and the maple pancake electronic cigarette package, they even say there's 0 calories per 50 servings. So who do you think that's going to be marketed towards? Probably teenage girls or teenagers, even teenage males as well, who's going to be worried about weight management. So their slogan is, "Why eat a cupcake when you can smoke one for 0 calories?" is a very, very misleading marketing technique, especially among the teenage girls. And then there's also a big misunderstanding among youth when it comes to e-cigarettes. Is it safe? Is it not safe? What do we know about it? So a really popular claim from youth or from anyone is vaping is safer than smoking. Well, a lot of things in this world are safer than smoking or using tobacco. Tobacco is the only legal consumer product that, when used for its intended purpose, has a high likelihood that it will kill you. So it has that high likelihood. So while it may have less overall chemicals inside of the e-cigarettes, we just don't know the long-term effects, but we still know that there are a lot of chemicals inside the e-cigarettes.
Brent, I think
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Szymanski has a question for you.
Brent, thank you for your presentation. I just have a couple questions related to the e-cigarettes.
Sure.
Is the device taxed like a cigarette, or is the juice that goes in the e-cigarette device, is that taxed at a high rate, or where are we at?
So what's taxed? So the device itself, you can buy the device separate, that's not taxed. But the juice that you can get, so you can get juice, or there's pods that come, that is taxed.
Okay, but do you know what the rate of tax, is it
I do not.
substantial, or is it minimal?
I don't know that.
All right,
the answer to
thank
that
you.
one. So what we do know is that's inside electronic cigarettes is nicotine. The majority of electronic cigarettes contain nicotine. There are e-cigarettes that claim that there's no nicotine, but there's been studies done that about 90% of those that claim there's no nicotine, there's still nicotine in them. And the way these companies are able to get away with these claims is that the FDA can't fully regulate these electronic cigarettes until 2022. And then nicotine levels in these e-cigarettes are usually significantly higher than traditional cigarettes, making it easier to become addicted. And then with these e-cigarettes being fully flavored and have all these creative flavors that kids use, it's a lot easier to inhale the e-cigarette vapor or aerosol, actually, deeper into your lungs than you would traditional cigarettes. Traditional cigarettes, it's going to be kind of harsh. You're not going to be able to inhale it deep into your lungs, but with e-cigarettes, you're going to be able to inhale it, all those harmful chemicals deeper inside your lungs as well. And then on a side note, it shouldn't even be called vaping because it's not actually a vapor that's coming out of the electronic cigarettes. It's an aerosol. So these companies are saying that it's vapor to make it seem like it's just water vapor, or it's a lot safer, when in fact it's an aerosol that's carrying those harmful chemicals. And then the nicotine addiction in these electronic cigarettes, they're a lot different than traditional cigarettes. So with traditional cigarettes, your nicotine levels kind of go like a roller coaster. So it goes up at peaks and then goes down in valleys until you can go and smoke your cigarette outside, or wait for a break, or wait till you get home from work or home from school. But with nicotine levels in these electronic cigarettes, it starts up really high. A lot of times, especially with the pod devices, it's very, very high. So as soon as nicotine level dips down just a little bit, your body needs that nicotine, and it can easily get it. Just take it out of your pocket. You can easily hide it, inhale it, and then put it back in your pocket, and then your nicotine level goes right back up to the top. And then over time, your body needs more and more nicotine as well. And then I did bring some samples. So this first one, so I did tobacco retailer store audits to all the retailer stores in Meeker, McLeod, and Sibley County. So I found some products that were pretty interesting. So this first one is an e-cigarette. So it looks kind of like a traditional cigarette. So it comes with a pod, and then you screw it in, and then you can smoke it out of the pod and charge it. And then one of these pods has the same amount of nicotine as about 15 cigarettes. And I found this, it was $5.99 on sale for 99 cents. So it's a lot cheaper. And they had a coupon right there in the store. And then that one is menthol flavored. And then menthol, like traditional cigarettes, it's the same thing that's in cough drops or lozenges to help soothe the throat, so it doesn't feel as harsh when you inhale it. The next e-juices that I have, so these work with the electronic cigarettes that you put the e-juice in yourself, and you can put as much or as little as you want. But how they're marketing towards the youth is they're using these flavors. So the first one that I have here, this flavor is sour gummy worms, and then even if you open it up and then you can smell it, it's definitely very, very fruity. And then the next one, I found this right on the front counter at a tobacco retailer store. I can't say where, but it looks just like an energy drink or a soda can. So just the way that they package these e-cigarettes, and you open up the top, and then the e-juice is inside. And then just to note, maybe a third or even less, if a toddler or a baby were to get into one of these, they'd be poisoned and then potentially die from consuming these. And then if you can smell how fruity they smell, so they smell just like candy. And then second to last one I'll show you. This is a device that I found. I went into a tobacco shop and then asked around and said what's popular and kind of what's kind of on the uptick right now. And he said this one, it's the drop, so it kind of looks like a mouse or a whiteout, or it definitely doesn't look like an e-cigarette. So if you saw this on the counter, you probably wouldn't think this is an electronic cigarette. So that's why it's so easy to hide for youth, that they can hide in their pockets. They can even hide it in plain sight. And then he also was trying to sell me on that this product is more naturally taken from the tobacco plant, so it's more organic. So he said it's a nicotine salts, and then he was like sold me this mystery flavor, and then if you open it up, it smells like cotton candy or fruit. But I'm pretty sure adults would want to know what flavor they're getting, where youth are going to be rebellious and kind of take that risk. And then the last one, so this device came out about 3 years ago, and now it controls 70% of the electronic cigarette market. So it's called the Juul. It looks just like a USB drive. You plug it into your computer to charge it, and it looks just like a USB drive into the computer. And then you use pods to put in the end of it. And then the pods come in fruity flavors. This one is really popular among youth because it doesn't look like a traditional e-cigarette. You can have it placed on the table, and adults and teachers and parents really won't know that it's an actual electronic cigarette. And then why they're so popular, like I said, there's the flavors, and then it's so easy to conceal these electronic cigarettes. So I have another few examples. So other ways that youth or teenagers might hide these electronic cigarettes. So this is a hairbrush. You can use it just like a normal hairbrush, but then the top opens, and then you can hide anything in the top, and then it even comes with a stash bag to hide smells. So there's all sorts of products. There's pop cans, there's water bottles, there's all sorts of stuff. This is just on an online site. You can easily get that on Amazon, yep. And then the last one I'll show you, so there's actually a clothing line out there for electronic cigarettes and how to hide them. So this is a sweatshirt. So in one end of the string, you have attached electronic cigarette, and there's a pocket that goes right in front. And then you can inhale it all the way through the string, and then smoke it out the other side. So there's all sorts of creative ways and creative things out there for youth. So I'll pass that around, but it's kind of scary how all these creative people are out there trying to sell these. That was online, but otherwise all these other electronic cigarettes out there you can find in tobacco retailer stores as well. And then, so e-cigarette companies, including Juul, that USB-looking device, claim they're only designed and marketed for adults, but youth are 16 times more likely to use e-cigarettes than adults ages 25 to 34, who they claim that they're marketing towards. So 16 times more likely that youth are going to use electronic cigarettes. And then we may be at a historical low in smoking for adults, but we have an epidemic when it comes to e-cigarette use. Youth are getting addicted to nicotine faster than ever before and are 4 times more likely to smoke cigarettes if they use electronic cigarettes. So these e-cigarette companies are claiming that it's an ulterior method to using cigarettes when they're 4 times more likely to end up starting to smoke cigarettes in the first place. And then I do these trainings at schools throughout the 3 counties, including McLeod County. I've done I think 3 or 4 different schools in McLeod County, and at one of the schools, the principal told me a story that he caught an individual using the Juul or an electronic cigarette in class. So he had him in his office, and then he was sitting there and asking him, so why is it so popular, and asking all these questions. And then he said, so if I gave you 10 minutes to go out to all your classmates and all the lockers, free range of anywhere in the school, and then come back here, how many electronic cigarettes would you be able to bring back to me? And then the student kind of thought, he's like, oh, well, would they get in trouble? And he's like, well, no, it's hypothetical. And then so he thought, he's like, well, I could probably get you 100 electronic cigarettes in these schools in 10 minutes to bring it back and put it on the principal's desk. So it's definitely out there in the schools. It's really popular, and there are negative effects as well. And then also another school decided to survey students themselves just by asking the class a teacher did in McLeod County. And she asked, well, first of all, she asked teachers, how many students do you think, what percentage of students do you think are using e-cigarettes? And they're like, oh, probably 10%. And then she asked students, and they said about half, about 50% of students are in high school are using electronic cigarettes. So that's definitely a big difference of what we think is happening, what's actually happening as well. And then I'll open up to questions at this point.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
e-cigarettes, in the high school environment and high school athletes, if they are caught with e-cigarettes or real cigarettes or chewing tobacco, are they disqualified from participating on their teams?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really up to the school and their policies. So each school is different with that, and then the athletic director has different policies with that as well. But most often they're suspended, at least for a few games, depending on the sport.
Yeah, that would be a concern, if the percentage of the student body that is using that device, eventually you'll end up with smaller and smaller team participation.
Right.
If they're suspended from the team, the school can't field an adequate team to represent their school district. So it's kind of a moral dilemma, in a really broad range. So I appreciate you bringing this information to us. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Any other questions
I
for
got
Brett?
one. Yeah, thank you for your presentation today. I've got a few teenagers at home, so I get to hear many stories, and it's unfortunate how much time needs to be consumed in the schools by teachers and administration to deal with this. The different things that you've been able to work with, or what has been some successful educational campaigns that you feel have made kids kind of sit back and think a little bit about making the choice of vaping or not? Is there some things that you've been able to see have made a difference, or we're just not there yet to try and make that determination?
I mean, there's tons of resources out there that you can find. The CDC has a bunch, all those big companies. Surgeon General has a lot of good resources that they can look at. So a lot of times youth and teenagers, they're getting their information from bad resources that they find online. But so just letting them know what we do know about electronic cigarettes and what's inside, and the cancer-causing chemicals that are in these flavorings can help them understand that it's not just water vapor. It's not good for you. It's not way better for you than traditional cigarettes. So just knowledge about it. I've been sending some curriculum around to schools for health teachers to be able to educate on this topic, because a lot of times health teachers don't really want to touch this topic because they really don't know that much about it. So it really comes down to educating and the knowledge about what's actually going inside of these teenagers' bodies.
How informed do you think parents are on these choices?
Not very informed. There's I think it was Care 11 or another news station they went around at the state fair, and they brought those different devices that I passed around, and they brought them out and asked them, so what are these? And a lot of times they're like, oh, it's just a USB port, or it's a eraser, or they didn't think it was an actual e-cigarette device. And then they went around to, I think at the end of the video, they went up to a 13-year-old and asked the individual what these are, and she's like, oh, that's a jewel, that's a drop. And she knew right away, and that was a 13-year-old. So the teenagers definitely know a lot more about the availability of these than parents. So parents are kind of in the dark about this a little bit.
Most 13-year-olds think they know more than their parents on everything.
Yes, yep, yep.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I may ask Brett another question. You made the reference that, when they exhale, the presumption is that it's water vapor, but as you pass the samples around, I looked at the ingredient list, and it's glycerin and propylene glycol, which are, really effectively antifreeze type of compounds. And that is what goes into the lungs and, does the damage. And people don't realize that, this is not water vapor going in or coming out. And so it is very dangerous chemicals. I think they're gambling with their futures if they use these devices. So thank you for.
Yep, yeah, definitely. So to add on that, I think that the propylene glycol, the FDA has made it safe for small consumption of that, but not inhaling of it. So they still need to work on the regulation of that as well. And then the Jewel product that I passed around, their big claim is that they only have 4 ingredients. So the 2 you said, nicotine, and then the last one is flavorings. But inside that flavoring, there's all sorts of other chemicals, including cancer-causing chemicals as well. So it's just the labeling of the products as well, and knowing what's going inside of your body.
Well, Brent, we realize you have a tough job, but thank you for doing it. Thank you for coming today. And we were able to see you at a workshop setting, and it was important to the commissioners that you come before the formal board and give a similar presentation. So please keep us in mind if there's more information that you think we need to have, or if there's some tools we can help get you. Don't be afraid to ask, okay?
Perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Teletsky, whenever you're ready.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We do have 4 items on the agenda this morning from Environmental Services, so we'll just get into number A. It is a request for approval to enter into an agreement with Tacoma and Helen Township for the removal of snow and for minor site maintenance activities around the recycling containers. This is more of an amendment to the existing agreement that we have. It is an increase of $100 for that, and we do have one outstanding township site that we haven't come to agreement with yet. But both of these we have reviewed with our solid waste advisory committees in October and November of 2018, and we do have a contract signed by both townships meeting this requirement of $400 per year.
All right, any questions?
Move to approve the agreements with Tacoma and Helen Township.
A motion by Commissioner
Second.
Shansky, second by Commissioner Kruger. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item B, we are requesting approval to close the aluminum redemption account on March 1st, 2019. This account is inactive and has been since July of 2018. The reason for that is with the amended contract with Green Forest, the vendor who is running our MRF facilities, they have taken on the required task, if you will, of that aluminum redemption for individuals that do come in. So with that being said, what we would like to do is close this account and then issue notices to those who have outstanding checks to let them know that this account will be closing and that it would be in their best interest to cash that check.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Wright, second by Commissioner Polmeyer. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item C is consideration of approval of an independent contractor professional service agreement between McLeod County Environmental Services as well and Dwayne Radke Sewer Service for 2019 subsurface sewage treatment systems. Last year, Dwayne entered into the same contract with us, and the reason for that was we did not have a licensed staff due to staff that have left McLeod County. Currently, Jake is licensed now, and we are in the process of working on a second staff. Last year's contract was in the amount, a total amount not to exceed $40,000. This year's contract would be not to exceed $24,625. It is the same contract. I have sent that to the Attorney's Office for review. And so with that being said, I don't anticipate us meeting that. It's just in case we need that. So worst case scenario would be that $24,625. And these funds we currently have through an SSTS grant. with the state for 2018-19. Each year, we receive $18,600, which is not a matching grant, so we do have more than enough to cover this request.
Is Jacob still under that, I don't know, the phase of where he needs somebody to mentor him in that,
Nope.
or has he passed through that?
Jake is fully licensed with the state, and the request from this is in the event that we do see an uptick. Last year it was very busy, and it was needed that we could have multiple people in the field, which is why we're in the process of trying to license another staff member. But he is fully licensed, and if he is off on vacation, which I anticipate, we do not want a disruption in services, and therefore we could utilize Dwayne until we get a second person licensed.
All right, very good.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agreement.
Motion by Commissioner Kruger. Second. Second by Commissioner Szymanski. Is there any discussion? Hearing
Mr.
none.
Chair, I'll just real quick, I've had some experience with this, and it's good to have, I mean, it's not mandated, we don't have to use them, so it's, and he's been out in the field for a long time, and I've had some experience where people are waiting for that guy to get there, so it's a good idea.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item D, we do have a review of a conditional use permit 15-15 as applied for by Lev Merman and approved by the McLeod County Board of Commissioners on August 15th, 2015 for recycling of cooking oil and to employ more than 5 non-family employees. The MPCA, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, is processing an active investigation after receiving a complaint due to illegal disposal of wastewater and cooking oil. The McLeod County Environmental Services Office assisted MPCA Duty Officer Chris Green on site Monday, January 14th, 2019 to review the illegal activity. Photos were taken for the record. This property is located within the Agricultural District at 4039 US Highway 212, Plato, Minnesota 55370 of Section 16, Helen Township. And Mr. Merman is present, so before I ask him to come up, if you have any comments for him. The Planning Commission did receive or did hear this request July 22nd, 2015, as stated, as well as the County Board on October 4th, 2015. And there were conditions that were associated with this request. One of the biggest concerns that we have out there, and with the pictures, MPCA, there was an open ditch that was there, and it's evident that there was that cooking oil material that was dumped, if you will, land applied in an open ditch area. It looks to be that the spill is contained, but it still does not meet the conditions of the request. The second issue, and Mr. Merman can speak to that, there was a fire in the house, and there is a fifth wheel trailer out there that the tenant, his employee is inhabiting right now, and therefore, per Section 7 of the zoning ordinance, we do require that it's a home occupation, that this use is incidental or subordinate to the primary purpose of the property, which is living on it. So I do have some concerns with that as well. But Mr. Merman is here.
Mr. Chair?
If you have questions for him
Mark,
or myself.
Before you turn it over to him, what was the findings? I mean, when MPCA was there and the pictures, did they have any recommendations or any findings from their inspection?
Which is interesting, because I did call MPCA. I spoke with Chris Green directly, and I asked where we were at in the investigation process, and due to the fact that it is an open investigation, they would not share any of that information with me.
So it still is open?
Still is open.
Okay.
Correct.
So what did the Planning Commission, do they have any recommendations?
We did not send it to the Planning Commission
Oh, I'm sorry, I
for a review, just due to the fact that this board was the last body that heard this, and you have final authority. So if your wishes are to send it back to that body, we can definitely do that. Right now, the conditions are pretty straightforward in regards to what he can and can't do out there. My concern is obviously is the pollution issue, the pictures that are there. I do have some more that I can share with you. We need to do our best to contain that due to the area that it's in. There's floodplain around the entire perimeter of the property, and if this were to continue, we risk having that enter surface water.
Thanks, Mark. I do have some more comments, but I can listen to him first.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, Mark, what is your recommendation?
My recommendation is pretty simple. We either do nothing, we either amend this conditional use permit and add more conditions to it, or revoke it. If it were me, My concern would be that we can't continue to allow this to happen, so therefore, at the very least, we need to amend this with tighter conditions, and if we were per se, put him on probationary period and bring it back in a short period of time for review to see if he can't clean this up.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mark, you and I have talked about this, I mean, in full disclosure, so, I mean, in order to, I mean, we can't amend it to land apply without doing, or, you know, without dumping it, without doing some more investigation or whatever it is, and I don't believe you can do it in this day and age anymore without some permitting or some lining of a pond or whatever, but have you looked into that? Is that a possibility? And I don't personally. Does it belong back at the planning commission, or is it just for us to enforce you and the board to enforce the permit that exists? I know that's a loaded
The board does have the option of referring it back to the planning commission, have them do a public hearing, and have them make any recommendations to you. That's an option that you have. The notification issues for a public hearing would mean that couldn't be done within about 30 days.
With that being said, I am of the opinion where we're at today, I believe, with Mr. Merman present, and that is why we asked for him to be there. I do believe this review could be done here. If you want us to further investigate that and make sure that what he's proposing can adequately be done on site. Obviously, the concerns that I have at the time that this was approved is a home occupation conducted in an accessory building it's about multiple things. Appearance being one of them, also operation being one of them. Noise, glare, that type of entity or type of issue in regards to the home occupation. So with that being said, he has multiple things that he's storing outside. So obviously there's a concern. I've been out there in the past, within the last year, in regards to complaints about the outdoor storage piece that's not addressed on the permit. So where I'm going with this is if you feel necessary that we send this back to the Planning Commission and we look into this a little bit more and tighten up some of those conditions, we certainly can do that. As far as the pollution issue, I don't know that there's anything we can do at the Planning Commission that we can't do here in regards to trying to alleviate that concern.
Then I pass that back to I wasn't aware of the house fire and the occupation of the trailer. Is that temporary? I mean, is the house repairable? And if so, are they repairing it, or what is that? What is the long?
And I would defer that question to Mr. Merman, and he can answer that better. So with that being said, if there is no intent to refix that house or to replace that house to make it livable, then obviously that, in my mind, via the ordinance, it definitely puts that conditional use in jeopardy.
Mr. Mervin, do you wish to address the board at all? All right, please come forward and remember the mics. You need to be pretty direct as you speak into them so everybody can hear you.
Hi, my name is Lev Merman, and
Talk a little bit closer to them, okay?
my name is Lev Merman, and I'm the owner of the property. We definitely are in the process of rebuilding the house. We are now gutting it, and then we will rebuild it and move back into the house. The trailer that's on the property is only temporary. Now, I know that there were concerns about some gray water from the trailer. We wanted to put it into the regular sewage system that's on the property already. Again, this does not increase the capacity of the sewer system. It's just same people that live in the house are just now living in the trailer, and we just wanted to dump the gray water exactly as it would go from the house into the same sewer system that's on the property now. Now, I realize that I may have to get a permit for this, if it's possible. I don't know. I guess I have to address that. As far as what we're doing to clean up the mess on the property, even before MCPA was on the property, I went out and I got two 21,000-gallon tanks specifically to take care of this issue. We are no longer putting water from production into that pit that we dug out. It's all going into the storage tanks. Now, I talked to Craig at MCPA, and he told me about the beneficial reuse of the water that we're generating. By the way, let me put it this way. The water that we're generating, our business is to get the used cooking oil from restaurants. Then we heat that used cooking oil up, and the oil separates into basically the water with the French fries and shrimp and whatever else is in it, and the oil on top. We skim off the oil on top, and that's the product that we eventually sell to our buyers. What remains is just the water with the shrimp and French fries. That's about it. Maybe a little bit of oil left in it. And that's what we're dumping into the ditch, or not the ditch, but the pit that we dug out on our property.
But you were dumping it into the ditch.
We were, yes,
Yeah.
yes. The idea was, again, and this was, I guess, my lack of knowledge, but it's fully biodegradable product. There is no petroleum of any kind in it, just basically food and water, whatever's left from deep fryers at restaurants. When Craig was on property, he recommended that I talk to some people about beneficial reuse, and that's Emily Chick. I called her, and she says that she sees no reason why we can't just land apply this product on the property. However, it has to be done with the permit, with the proper permit. And I inquired what needs to be done to get the permit. First step is to test it, and I already got the testing kit from Valley Labs. I have to send that in. They run an analysis, send it back to Emily, and if everything's okay, then she can issue a permit, and then
So
we
who
can
recommended this?
Craig from MCPA.
But you mentioned another name.
Let me see. Craig Schaefer.
Okay, so Craig Schaefer, and then, so he's the one that said
Yes.
he thought it was okay to dump it in the ditch?
No, he didn't say it's okay to dump it in the ditch. No, he recommended for me to talk to Emily, and I guess she is the administrator. She knows about the beneficial reuse of this product.
She's administrator of what?
I'm not sure, but he just told me to call her, and when I talked to her, she sounded like she's the one that would be issuing the permit to do this. But it would not be a permit to actually dump it into the ditch. It would be a permit to spread it on the field, just like manure spreaders.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just to speed this up a little, we're getting all over the place here, but I do have a little experience. I'm sure if you're gonna get the tank, I'm sure there's permitting after testing to land apply it. I'm sure you're not gonna be able to ever dump it in a stream or a field or any plant, but there are permitting areas to get it land applied. I'm sure if you go through the right things, I think we can move on from that one if, I think that's been addressed, but I know you can get permits, but it has to be tested, and then it'll tell you at what rate you can apply it to the land. But you do have to, you realize you have to have, whatever gallons you have to have acres to match those gallons, and they have to be, they're part of the permitting procedure so they know, so Mark knows, or environmental knows that you have the acres to apply it on.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the plan, is, to get it tested and get it properly permitted. And also, if it's not on our property, we can hire out farmers and apply it on their property. Also, there is the beneficial reuse of this water, because it can be used for dust control in the summertime.
Okay. Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Mr. Merman, I was on the Planning and Zoning Committee when we approved this conditional use permit. And I believe you haul the oil in with tanker trucks, is it, or?
Yes.
Okay. And then would this wastewater then be also trucked out with your tanker trucks, or?
Yes, if we can't land apply it on our property, if they decide that we don't have enough acreage or whatever, and we have to put it somewhere else, it would be tanker trucks, or it would be a sewer services type operation. We would just hire them out, and they would come out and get the water.
Have you ever looked at, I think at that time we talked about disposing of the water in in a sewage disposal plant. Have you ever looked at that
I
process?
did, and they don't want to do that because they are set up differently. They don't like to have really any oil in their water.
Because it will gum up the system.
This would, yeah, I mean, the sewage plants are really just for manure type operations. I mean, it's not, they don't like to have water in there.
Okay, all right. I've got a couple of questions for Mark, if you want to step up to the microphone. And thank you, Mr. Merman. We may have another question for you. But Mark, under the conditional use permit, a home occupation, is the business owner to be the resident on that property, or can one of the employees occupy the property?
The ordinance does not state that.
Okay.
It just states that it has to be the use has to be incidental or subordinate to the primary use, and someone has to be living there.
Okay,
So could that be an employee? I do believe that could be the case.
okay, all right. My other question is, in the original permit application, the discussion was that there were no hazardous chemicals involved in this process, and therefore an MPCA permit would not have been required in 2015. Now the MPCA is involved. Is this some change in regulation, or what did we call on the MPCA for assistance in evaluating this?
No, actually, we were informed of this on January 10th. So it was a complaint filed by the public. I'm not really sure where that came from. And we were notified of that on it came through our emergency management services. Kevin Matthews informed me of it on Friday, January 11th. And then we assisted MPCA on site Monday, January 14th. So with that being said, we did not originate the request. I had been out there last year at the request of others to look at the site. I did not see that open ditching occurring last summer when I was out there in regards to the outdoor storage piece. So, if I may just to further and hopefully add a little more clarity to this, my recommendation would be that we put this on probation and that we add the condition that the outdoor storage is taken into consideration, and all the containers that he has on site are stored inside, and that this pollution has to be addressed within 6 months, and the house has to be livable within 6 months, and then we'll report back to the board if those conditions have been met.
So speaking of inside, it says in here in the permit from 2015, a new 60 by 80 structure, was that ever built? All right, so can we suspend this, Mike? Is that something that if I offered a motion to that, suspend it pending the completion of the investigation and a planning commission review?
Well, you can table this for 90 days if you want
I
to.
meant suspend the conditional use permit, not today.
You mean suspend the conditional use permit?
Yes.
That's the equivalent of revoking it, but you're certainly free to do that,
Okay.
yes.
All right, well,
Mr. Chair,
yeah.
before we get too far down the road here, I'm kind of, I'm always like to give the benefit of the doubt to a business, a small business, if I can. It is in my district. I have been watching this. There's some things here that may warrant a suspension just because of the processes not being followed or revoked. But I tend to more agree with Mark or from environmental to try and do a promotion, or a probation, easy for me to say. Probationary period. And with the condition, the only one that I've been jotting down notes here is the only addition I'd like to see is the further, the outdoor storage tanks be put in, and that the land be acquired to do a land application if the testing proves to be safe. The experience that I have with it, it probably will even be a little bit beneficiary to the land, but that remains to be seen in the testing. But I just hate to see a business put out without at least one chance to
Mr. Chair, if I may too, not to interrupt, but the 60 by 80 was built. That's where the tanker is.
That's what I thought.
But there's no storage being conducted. All the barrels and some of the other containers are outside yet, and there's one other building that potentially, and I haven't been inside that building with Mr. Merman, but there is another building that potentially could be used. But again, we had some concerns in regard to that outdoor storage piece from the public because it is in the public's eye, leaf on, leaf off, winter versus summer conditions, obviously, when you drive by there. They're visible in the wintertime. They can't really get them behind a building or behind a tree line to screen that adequately. So the pollution is one of the concerns, obviously, and the biggest concern. MPC is following up on that. I do not know what the outcome will be, but immaterial. There's other issues with that property that need to be addressed, and that is why I am requesting that we do ask for a probationary period. We can send that back to the Planning Commission for further review in regards to the operation of the process, but I don't know what the outcome would be any different if we just address the appearance and some of the characteristics that go with the operation.
Mr. Chair, I have been working with Mar, and I think there's enough, other than the outdoor storage part and the land application is new, the rest of the regulations are in place. It's just the idea of us enforcing them. And I've had a number of calls, and we've talked about them from the public on what was going on there. But again, I would like to see something to give them at least a shot at staying in business.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I guess I'm going to approach this a little differently. I do a lot of sports officiating. When we have a problem, we assess a penalty. I think everyone should be responsible for their actions. I look at this, I wasn't here 2 years ago when this was approved, but it's been 2 years. He's had adequate time to apply and play by the rules. Obviously, there's some problems and the rules were not followed. So I guess I'm more leaning to where the penalty should be enforced.
All right, I'm gonna throw this out there and see where we go with it. I will move to suspend the permit pending the review of the MPCA and then another review by the Planning Commission to come back before the board. Is there a second?
I would second that.
Second by Commissioner Polmeyer. Is there any discussion?
Just wanted to, just a point on that. So length of time would be what, Chairman?
Well, I don't have a length of time because the investigation is in their hands. Did they give you any timeline with that?
They have not.
Mr. Merman, if you want to speak, you got to come to the mic, but you're welcome to come up.
I truly apologize that this rule was violated. However, since, again, this is 100% organic material, there was no damage to the environment of any kind. But having said this, we fully intend to clean this up. We fully intend to comply with the rules. But if you guys shut us down, there is no money coming in. I mean, I don't really have a way to do anything. I mean, if there is no money in the company, there is nothing I can do. So I really am asking you to allow us to keep the operations going. And again, from this point on, any water will be stored in the additional tanks that are on the property. They're not going on the land at all. And if you can give us a little bit of time to comply, then we will certainly get that done. But again, if you shut us down, then there's just nothing we can do about it. I mean, there's no money coming into the company, so
Mr. Chair?
There's no way for us to do anything.
Yes, Doug.
I've been out there, and I'm fully aware it's a ma-and-pa operation, lack of a better word. And if we shut them down, we're going to end up cleaning it up. And I mean, I just, I mean, I'm all for not letting things get out of hand here, but I'm very, I know we're going to have to keep on top of this, but if we shut him down, I can see where he's out of business. He's got a flow of oil coming in. He's going to lose it to somebody else, and I would just ask that we try to work something out. It could be on every 30-day report from Mark or environmental that there's improvements, but I truly believe that if we revoke it, he's out of business. So just be aware of that.
And I totally respect that, and I hope that doesn't happen, but this is stuff that happens that I think we need to address, and that's where I'm at with it, and that's the reason for the motion.
Mr. Chair, again, and just for the reason, if this would have been, I was in this business for a couple of years, but it was with drain oil, and so drain oil was a pollutant, and I understand the regulations that have to make, this is biodegradable. I've been out there 3-4 times, sometimes when I knew I was there, and sometimes I just drove through the yard, but I agree, he hasn't followed all the rules of his permit, but it is truly biodegradable. The ditch thing really bothers me. Other than that, there's some of the things I can live with, but it is a biodegradable product. It's not like dumping drain oil in your backyard.
And I guess that poses the question, if it's biodegradable, why won't the wastewater treatment plant take it because they call it oil?
It gums up their centrifuges and they have screens and filters that it gums up, and it'll break down. It's animal fat is what it really is. It's no different than rendering lard. You're too young to remember that, but it's just no different than rendering lard in your kitchen, dump it down a drain, it'll plug everything up, but it's still biodegradable.
Ron, did you have something? I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, yes, and I'm in agreement with Doug on this in terms of the suspension. I'm afraid would cause the business disruption both to your employees and to your clients that are either shipping oil in or, taking oil off your property. And
We service about 200 restaurants in the Twin Cities area. If we're shut down, there is no service to those restaurants.
If there's a shutdown, they've got barrels of oil piling up in their back lots, and we don't want to see that either. And I do appreciate Mark's recommendation for what do you call it, probationary period to remedy some of these things. But the other question I had is if there is some ground surface contamination from this ditch or whatever it's been, is that something that can be cleaned up, needs to be cleaned up, and that's something that needs to be picked up and hauled off the site and disposed of in a landfill, or what's the outcome if we
That's
do
a great
continue
question, and
this?
that was really my directive when I called MPCA and wanted to speak in regards to the outcomes that they're trying to achieve in their investigation. So if there's a fine that's going to be levied, if there is going to be remediation that's going to be required, I wanted to get some of those answers from MPCA from their standpoint. From our perspective, obviously, the conditions that were there, and you have those in the packet, there was concerns in regards to that wastewater being land applied, but it was to be land applied. It was supposed to be, they were supposed to notify Roger Bergeron, our office, when he was land applying. The probationary period that I'm requesting allows for us to be aware of this issue without the Planning Commission just handling that active investigation with MPCA. If I work with Lev on this and we can come to some, agreement that he will comply within 6 months, then that's great, and we can report back and then have him appear in front of you
Mark,
to chart progress.
We need to address the motion on the table. So,
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
If I may. There are a couple options as I see it. Giving 6 months for somebody to do what they were supposed to do in the first place seems to be way too long. Perhaps what the board could do is look at this in 2 weeks and say, what is your plan to comply right now? And if you can't comply, then you're shut down. If you can comply, with that, then whatever. But the board does have to address the motion that is on the floor. The only way that could be circumvented is a motion to table for 2 weeks.
all right, I like that idea. So we've got 2 weeks to get this stuff straight, all right? So I will move to table the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Unless I'm missing something, we're under county administration. We'll review our calendars. Rich, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Since our last board meeting, we obviously had a workshop after the meeting and then a social service meeting after that. The 21st had our planning commission meeting, which we had one item on there. On the 28th, I did attend the township meeting here in Glencoe at the courthouse. That was a pretty good meeting. We discussed a few things. The townships were very receptive and helpful that night. On the 30th, due to the cold weather, I had a teleconference with Brian Paulson regarding the plans for our new government center. I apologize, I wasn't able to see a lot of the video. I had all the audio, so they were doing play-by-play for me on what the plans looked like. So with that, that brings me up to date.
Just real quick, had a meeting with SWCD staff, Collins Township, on in relation to some water going through CD number 64, and hopefully we can do some construction on that early this spring. Attended the corn and soybean banquet and also the Township Association meeting.
Had the meeting and the workshop, and typically we don't discuss the workshop agendas as they're published, but I wanted to talk about a few of them that we came up, or at least mention them. The legacy grant in regards to basically trails was discussed. Some folks were out from let's see if I get this right, Greater Minnesota Trails Commission?
Parks and Trails Commission.
That was close. We're out, and we had a lot of tough questions for them. It was enlightening for all of us. Maybe some things we already knew, but we were able to reaffirm those. Also, the public defenders funding, the court administrator was here talking to us about that, and the projected shortfall as it sits, and then the assessor's office gave us an update. So I thought that workshop was very productive, and I was very happy with the outcome. Had a CHS meeting. We've struggled getting the whole board together, so we've and Ron will speak to the finance piece of this in a second. I spoke to the overall, I can speak to the overall outcome of it. We talked about recruiting the director and how that looks. We really want all 15 commissioners weigh in on that so that we have their buy-in in the end as we go. And then I've also had been lucky enough to meet with local businesses regarding our EDA discussion we've been having. And for what it's worth, at least one business specifically in Hutchinson, a manufacturing business, talked about Highway 212 and how important that was to them. So I think in a couple weeks we're going to have a letter of support that'll go on the agenda regarding that, and we'll take a look at that then. But that's what my preliminary discussions have been, and I've been hearing on that.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, due to the death of my sister, I was not able to attend the last county board meeting, but I want to say thank you to the county staff for their expression of condolences, and I appreciated that very much. Last Monday, on the 28th, I sat in with the department heads and our deputy administrator talking about the new government center. The department heads were laying out their space needs and so forth, and so we kind of have a deeper understanding of what's going to go into that new project. And then that evening, I attended the McLeod County Association of Townships. It was a well-attended meeting, even though the weather was changing radically that night. It was a good meeting with the townships, and they're always informative, both for what they tell us and what we can share with them as well. And yesterday, we had the Supporting Hands Nurse Family Partnership quarterly meeting of the Joint Powers Board, and there we elected some new officers. We lost a couple of the former officers in the last election, so we've got new people on board at the Supporting Hands Nurse Family Partnership. I've again been nominated to the Finance Committee. The finances on the Supporting Hands Nurse Family Partnership are doing very well. They operate in 20 counties in southwestern Minnesota. We are one of those 20. We have essentially a full-time nurse dedicated in McLeod County to deal with the first-time mothers that fall outside the range of our public health nursing services. So this is really a kind of a very good service to be able to have for our residents here. Then in the afternoon, we had the Community Health Board Finance Committee meeting, the Meeker McLeod Sibley Community Health Services Finance Committee has a draft of our new finance policy as recommended by the Minnesota Department of Health. They've given us the verbal okay on it, so we'll be moving that forward at our next Joint Powers Board meeting. We're searching for that next director and trying to get all of our finances in order. The Meeker McLeod Sibley Public Health Board has been in existence for many years. In the last couple of years, we've really refined the business operation, and we continue to develop that. So that's where we are today, Mr. Chair.
Doug?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to comment, you commented on the workshop with Parks and Trails. That was, the one guy for sure was with the Legacy division of this and how to apply for grants, and that was really enlightening for me on the hoops that have to be jumped through to be qualified for these grants, and it taught me. I thought it was easier to get grants along trails for roads, and it takes quite a bit to be declared a regional trail. And where you would stand, you can ask for an application, but you're so far down the road if you don't have more things to offer for the trail in the county. After that workshop, we had a social services board meeting, and then on the 23rd, I had an HRA board meeting, and there was pretty much regular business. We did some construction up on the 14th Street houses. And with the weather conditions this year, with the rain and stuff, we put new sidewalks and driveways in for the garages, and they're starting to heave because of the water levels up there, and that inch of rain we had in January must have plugged up some of the drains, and it's kind of a mess that we're watching up there. But on the 23rd, I had Mid-Minnesota Development, and I got appointed to a DOT Transportation Advisory Team, and I don't quite know what that all entails yet, so obviously we get at least I know enough that we get a seat at the table to give a directive to where we think some of the money should be spent in our district. So we'll see. When I learn more about that, I'll let you know. On the 24th, I met with our environmental team, and we met with Green Forest on some of our issues with recycling and some different avenues that we can look at to improve the services and the efficiencies of that. On the 30th, I also was on the Skype session with Brian Paulson and with IGO, is that right? IGORU on our new government center. Skypes are nice, but it's not like being there. So we did get through it though, and we made some headway with the weather the way it was. And there's, I think there's a report coming out from that you guys will all see. And then I had some family emergencies, so between that and Nicole, that was my 2 weeks. So.
Cindy, anything to add?
I do not, Mr. Chair.
All right. Under item A, Mike, can you take that, please?
Certainly. We met about 2 weeks ago to do an evaluation of your county administrator, Cindy Ford. I have prepared with great assistance from others a compilation of what I believe was the extent of your comments throughout that session. It lasted about half hour, 45 minutes. The commissioners were all present. Ms. Ford was present, and I was present. And if this reflects what your point of view is, then I would recommend that you make a motion to approve it.
Any questions? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion to approve her evaluation.
Motion by Commissioner Kruger, second by Commissioner Polmeyer. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And just to note that the contract will come before you prior to April 1st, and it'll be on your consent agenda. If you want to pull it off of there, you are free to do that.
Very good. All right.
Thank you.
Cindy?
Okay, Mr. Chair, thank you. The next 4 items are notifications, as we have a potential of having a quorum at each one of these meetings. The first one is notification of the upcoming McLeod County Board Workshop to be held on February 19th, following the county board meeting here at the Glencoe City Center. The next notification is the Glencoe City Council will be having a workshop to review the CASA 15 or County Road 15 and Morningside cost on February 11th here at the Glencoe City Center at 4 p.m. The next item is, the next 2 items are from Connie Kurtzwig, the County Auditor Treasurer. She wanted to notify you of a joint drainage meeting on JD 17 McLeod Sibley to discuss preliminary engineering plans of a water control structure and proposed joint powers agreement between Minnesota Department of Natural Resources and the Joint Ditch Authority of 17, to be held on February 8th, 2019 at 1 o'clock here in Glencoe at the North Complex. The next item is a joint ditch meeting on Joint Ditch 8 McLeod Sibley to consider repair report by Houston Engineering, to be held on Thursday, March 28th at 10 a.m. at the North Complex here in Glencoe as well.
All right. Any questions about that? If not, open forum. Anyone wish to address the board? Press relations, he left. But on that note, that evaluation summary will go to the media?
It's available
to them.
To them, yes.
All right, very good.
And they can contact the county administrator to get a copy.
Okay, thank you. All right. Seeing no other business to come before the board, I'm looking for a motion to recess until February 19th at 9 a.m. at the Glencoe City Center.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Polmeyer, second by Commissioner Szymanski. Any discussion? Actually, I have some. Have we, did we schedule anything for the City of Hutchinson's workshop?
I have not heard back from their city administrator yet.
Okay.
So I've been waiting for an email any day.
So we'll have to make sure that's properly notified.
Right, correct.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Drive safe.